In 2011, 9 judges on the United States Supreme Court took a decision on about whether a video game was more like a novel or a weapon. The case was called Brown versus Entertainment Merchants Association. California wanted to ban sale of violent video games to minors. The court said no, 7 votes to 2. The judge wrote that video games communicate ideas just like books or movies, and so they deserve the same protection. He then added that even Grimm's fairy tales are full of horrible stuff. People dying, children abandoned in the woods, witches getting burned. But nobody bans Little Red Riding Hood. The most interesting part, though, isn't the ruling. It's why California lost. The scientific studies the state brought to court to prove that violent video games make kids violent were weak. The court wrote that the effects demonstrated were small and indistinguishable from those produced by other media, like Saturday morning cartoons. Every time I hear someone say games make you violent, I get this twitch in my eye, you know, when it starts pulsing right here under the eye. That's because I feel like people are talking about something they don't actually know. But that said, let's drop the games are bad for you argument. It doesn't really go anywhere anyway. The people who believe it will keep believing it. I want to tell you what games actually do, not in theory, in real life, in moments when people didn't have a lot of other options. In 2010, Ryan and Amy Green, a couple from Denver, find out their 1-year-old son Joel has a rare aggressive brain tumor. Doctors give him 4 months to live. Joel lives 4 more years. Ryan is an independent video game developer, not a famous one, not one with a big studio behind him. A regular one, like a lot of people I know. And while his son fights, Ryan starts doing what he knows how to do. He builds a game. The game is called That Dragon Cancer. You don't shoot anything. You don't win anything. Not in the usual sense. It's 14 small chapters, some realistic, some completely abstract. A hospital, a boat caught in a storm that's actually a room where doctors are telling the parents the tumor is back and it's terminal. At some point, it starts raining inside the room. Then the rain turns into a full storm. Then you find yourself on a lifeboat with Joel. Joel dies in March 2014 at 5 years old. The game comes out 2 years later, on January 12, 2016. Amy Green said in an interview that those creative outlets, the game, but also a children's book they wrote, a short film, were how the family processed what was happening. Just the only way they had to stay standing. At PAX, one of the biggest gaming conventions in the world, people who had played That Dragon Cancer would come up to Ryan Green and hug him. Strangers, people who had lost a child, a sibling, a parent, and who had found something in that game they hadn't found anywhere else. I don't know about you, but I used to think games were just there to kill time. I was very wrong. On March 20, 2020, Animal Crossing New Horizon comes out for Nintendo Switch. The world at that exact moment was shutting down. I don't know if you remember it well. Well, I do. I remember not knowing when we'd be able to go outside again. The game sells more than 11 million copies in 11 days. It becomes the fastest launching Switch game ever. In 6 weeks, it sells more than 13.4 million copies. Animal Crossing is a slow game. There's nothing to win. Fish, bugs, an island to decorate, debt to a capitalist raccoon named Tom Nook that nobody ever really pays off. During lockdown, it became the closest thing to leaving the house that millions of people had. People had weddings on their islands. People invited friends over for a walk because a real walk wasn't possible. It was also used from some of the pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong, but that's another story. A game about a raccoon who sells garden tools became a space for political protest. in a city where physical protest had been made impossible by a virus. Nobody designed it that way. People just use it for that anyway, because it was the one place left where they could still be seen out in the street, among other people, holding a sign. In 2014, a Polish studio, 11-Bit Studios, released a game called This War of Mine. You don't play as a soldier, you control a group of civilians trapped in a bombed-out house during a siege. You have to decide whether to steal food from a defenseless/old man to survive. You have to decide whether to leave someone out in the cold. The game is partly inspired by the siege of Sarajevo in the 90s, one of the longest sieges in modern history. On February 24, 2022, Russia invades Ukraine. That same day, 11-Bit Studios puts out a statement. It says, roughly, for the next 7 days, all profits from this war of mine on every platform will go to the Ukrainian Red Cross. In about 11 days, they had raised around $850,000, far more than they expected. The game wasn't made as propaganda or as a fundraiser. It was written 8 years earlier about a different war at a different time, and then reality caught up with it again. In 2022 and 23, some teachers in Poland started using it in class because it asks questions that history books sometimes don't ask well. What does winning even mean in a game like this? Does it mean surviving? Does surviving at any cost still make sense? Last story, shorter one, but I wanted to include it. In 2016, a team of researchers from the University College London and the University of East Anglia, together with Deutsche Telekom and Alzheimer's Research UK, released a mobile game called Sea Hero Quest. You play a sailor trying to recover his father's lost memories, sailing between maps and islands. It looks like just another game. Well, it isn't. One of the earliest symptoms of dementia, often the very first one, is losing your sense of direction. Researchers needed data on how people navigate space at different ages, all over the world. But collecting that kind of data in a lab is slow and expensive. With the game, 2 minutes of play generate the same amount of data that would take 5 hours to collect in a lab. The game has been downloaded and played by more than 4 million people worldwide, for a combined total of over 117 years of gameplay, generating what researchers call the largest dementia study ever concluded. More than 4 million people who thought they were just playing a game on their phone on the subway, in line at the post office, on the couch. And without knowing it, they were helping science understand a disease that still has no cure. Just ordinary people playing, leaving something good behind without even meaning to. These stories don't have much in common, except for one thing. In every single one of them, someone was struggling, or scared, or had nowhere else to be, and they found the game. Not exactly an escape from reality, more like a place to hold onto reality for a while before going back to living it. Let me know in the comments if you got a story like this, a game that got you through a rough moment. I'd love to read them. Thanks for watching.